We're live.
We are live. All right. So I guess we don't even have a name for this podcast yet. Maybe it's drinking on air.
I like that.
Or just drinking air. I don't know. Drinking air is kind of like inconclusive. Kind of sounds like I'm sipping oxygen or something. But anyway, welcome to the podcast. This is Nicholas Olds and Andrew Bennett again. Yet to have decided officially on a name, but just doing a kind of improvised number 2 podcast. But we're excited, and we're going to talk some NFL, obviously, and have some other random. So, Nick, I wanted to ask you a question to open up. And it's kind of in lieu of all this heat wave that we've been getting in July. And I know it's kind of a personal question, so forgive me if I'm too personal with you. But like, when it's really hot and your air conditioner is broken, do you wear underwear, or do you just free ball in like mesh shorts?
That's a very important question. When your AC goes out, you can't risk it with underwear. That's extra cotton. It's going to slow you down 100% of the time. I've talked to John Gruden about this at length, and he would always give me the answer that, when it gets hot out, it's not time for underwear. What do you think, Coach?
I think that's a fantastic answer. But I don't think John Gruden could stand not wearing underwear because his balls are so big. I mean, have you ever seen the way he spreads that eagle out, man? His balls look like 2 giant pineapples prickling out of a tree. It's disgusting.
Now, Andrew,
but I personally think that I personally am wearing underwear right now, and my AC is kind of fucked up. Mostly because I'm just straight up poor. But I 95% of the time do not wear underwear in this heat, which can be a problem at times if you see strangers or you exit your house and see a neighbor and they can see literally the entirety of the shape of the head and the shaft of your penis through your mesh shorts.
It does for some awkward dinner conversations.
It's very true. But some might argue that the cotton could absorb sweat. Just putting it out there.
Well, I'm going to go send that out to the lab, and I'll get back to you on that.
All right. I'm just going to go ahead and go to you and see what you got planned for us today then.
All right. Well, want to talk about some of the new things going around the NFL. I'm just going to do a little hot take. All right. I just want to get your reaction. I'm going to read you a headline here. And we'll just make a little forecast. All right, so first up, Jets signed Ryan Fitzpatrick today, finally.
Nice.
What are your thoughts on that? 1-year deal.
What was the money?
I'm not going to say. It's like, let's see. They don't have official salary right now, but $12 million a year.
Well, I mean, I think it's a good thing. I think he had an exceptional year. I think he basically, outpunched his weight last year with a couple of with a very solid offensive line, which constituted a top running game in the league, and he has 2 really, really dynamic wide receivers as well. But I still think that he, played above his potential last year and deserved to get paid without a doubt. So I like the signing. I think it's good for the Jets. One of the things was that every episode I want to play the face game. And the reason I bring this up is because of Geno Smith, which is the other option the Jets would have, who I think is absolutely terrible. And the face game would be, we pick one or 2 players an episode, preferably rookies that are coming to the league that we don't know much about. For example, Ezekiel Elliott or Josh Doxson, whatever, and we judge what they're going to do, what their future potential is based on the look of their face. I'm sorry to break off tangent there, but Geno Smith's horrible. Ryan Fitzpatrick signing, good for business, good for the Jets, good for that division. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely share a lot of similar sentiments. I thought you might kind of bring up how that signing might impact, whatever Kirk Cousins' market is or will be in the future, but they're not exactly equatable. This is a 1-year deal. We're looking to sign him for a long-term deal, so we'll talk more about that at another time, I'm sure. But for right now, the Jets got even more mediocre. I agree with you in the sense that I think he had a good year last year because he had some good weapons, but don't expect anything too crazy out of the Jets this year. Let's go ahead.
No, I mean, just a final thought on that. Certainly not a long-term option. I think he deserved to get paid, but he shit the bed in playoffs. But I think he's their best possible option this year. And I find it kind of strange that you want to compare it to Kirk Cousins because, he's a young, developing quarterback. And again, I'm a biased piece of shit Redskins fan, and I already know that. But that, he's going to get a long-term contract if he plays as good as he did last year or better, no matter what. And that's just really simple. But we'll get to the contract talks a little later. Go ahead.
All right, another news flash that happened in the last week. Texans lose J.J. Watt for at least 8 games. He's going to start the season on the PUP list, on the PUP list, recovering from back surgery. But that definitely, is going to put a big hamper on their playoff hopes. What do you think?
I heard about his back surgery. I didn't know it was 8 games. So I guess this leaves me a little bit more behind. But I mean that's the NFL defensive MVP. So it's obviously catastrophic. I mean, they're going to be looking for guys like Clowney to step up, but there's no one in the NFL that can replace that motor and that man. I mean, he is the single most destructive defensive player that I've pretty much seen in my generation, I think, since Reggie White. And I barely remember Reggie White with the Packers. So I think that's huge.
Oh, yeah. I think the Texans are a completely different team without him, right? He's the one-of-a-kind player, and he is the heart and soul of that defense. So it's going to take a big, strong half of the year for that Texans team that is, they're in transition and they got some new pieces on offense, but they used to be able to count on that defense, right? That defense has been really good for a couple of years, so they're going to have to start strong this year if the Texans have any chance to make the playoffs. But we'll see.
I mean, they're one of those.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I think the Texans are one of those teams that I think are trending a little bit down. I think they overachieved last season a little bit due to a terrible division. A lot of people would say the same thing about the Redskins, which is, somewhat justified. I think that he is the integral part of their team, and they have a lot of new pieces and important places in that team. So and that division's getting better. So I think that's a huge loss for them, huge loss for the NFL. And back surgery is a big deal. So that's something definitely to keep an eye on with his health in the future. Because I don't know about you, but I heard rumors of him contemplating retirement and stuff earlier this year, which was kind of weird, around Super Bowl time. So definitely a good point, something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he's always played injured, so it must take a lot to kind of keep him out. All right, let's go ahead and hit one more news flash before we go talk kind of Redskins football or something. So we talked a little bit informally off air about this, but Josh Gordon looked like he's going to get another chance to come back, and play in this league. I guess I might have a soft spot for him because I was one of the few people that picked him up. And when he was crushing it and had like 8 games in a row where he was the best player in the NFL. So I will always remember him for that. But I want to see him get another shot in the league. I want to hope him and Robert reunite and make some magic in Cleveland. I think.
It's a very hopeful thought, my friend. And I'm a hopeful person and a pretty optimistic person. I like to think the best is going to happen. And I would like to see. I mean, he's a hell of a talent. I liked him. He had a half of a year that was incredible. I mean, the Browns are actually some. I hope the best for Robert as well. I hope he plays well. But if I had to bet on this, if I had to put money on it, I wouldn't. I mean, Josh Gordon had a good season 3 years ago and just keeps fucking up over and over and over again. And do I see it really translating into anything to that nature that, of the season he had 3 years ago? No. So I'll have to shit on your dreams, brother.
I respect that. You gotta speak some reality sometimes, Andrew. All right, let's go.
Not very often.
Yeah, not very often, but let's go somewhere close to home. Some rather tragic news that happened in the last week. The Redskins lost a hopeful Junior Gillette. They're optimistic outside linebacker for the year, for the second consecutive year before the season even starts. So, good night to him.
Well, I'll give you my P. Give you my P and my O. Okay, my pessimistic and my optimistic outlook. My pessimism is fuck. I fucking hate this shit because I was super excited about Junior Gillette. I was excited about him last year. He tore his right Achilles. Excited about it this year. He tore his left Achilles. It sucks ass. Master rusher. I really Norman and him would be just, it would honestly be devastating. I mean, they were excited about him too. And, I think that's his career. I think it's done. It was hopeful. It was low risk. I'm getting into my O if you can't tell. Here's my O face.
That's beautiful.
So, it was low risk, high reward, and it didn't pan out. So, fuck it. I hope the guy for Junior Gillette, I hope he gets back, gets healthy, and plays someday. Hopefully for us, maybe. But it happens to every NFL team, and it's the one thing that you wait for as soon as training camp starts. Like, who's the first person that's going to tear their ACL? Is it going to be Apple for the Broncos, Jordy Nelson? The fucking Green Bay Packers wide receiver, first or second round draft pick in fantasy, and everybody just waits and they drop like flies. And it seems like at least 5 to 10 extremely good players fall out even before the season begins. And this sucked because our training camp began. I mean, so it just seems like this guy's got problems in his body, and it's unfortunate for him. And I just, I'm upset about it, but it's the next man up policy. We're really hopeful for Preston Smith to increase his production. He had 8 sacks last year, 5 in the last 3 games, and Trent Murphy transitioning from linebacker to defensive end should help us as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely sad for the guy, and there's a lot of optimism. There was a lot of high expectations about that player and about that defense and what those pieces could do together. But like you said, next man up. This is an opportunity for Preston Smith, who's one of the unheralded players on that team, to make the most of this opportunity. And I think he can repeat the success he had at the end of last year. So overall, like you said, injuries are a fact of life that every team has to deal with, and it just sucks that this is kind of the first one of the year, but there will be more, and the best we can do is just look for other people to step up. So that's what has to happen, and I think it will. All right. What's the next thing you want to talk about, Andrew? Any other injuries on the news or?
You know what I want to talk about, Nick? I want to talk about how much I fucking hate sports radio in the summertime.
Amen.
Can we fucking talk about that?
Please.
They don't have a goddamn thing to talk about all fucking day. If I hear about baseball again, I will fucking castrate myself. It is horrible. Do you personally enjoy hearing about baseball in the summertime?
No, I can't even listen to a game, let alone people talk about the game of baseball in the summer.
I can't even watch a game. It's borderline unwatchable.
Well, this is definitely the lull moment in all of sports where there's nothing going on. So there's just dead air. And, normally in the past, we've had like the scandals of Johnny Manziel or LeBron James or, something to distract us. But it does seem like this year it's just unreasonable contract talks or just terrible forecasts that never seem to come true. So I'm with you there. They need some new content.
It's borderline. I mean, sorry, look, I'm a big ESPN 980 fan. I'm in the Washington area. Everybody knows. I'm a big Kevin Sheehan and Chris Cooley, Tom Lavero fan. I listen to Sports Fix. That the radio station just got all fucked up because they jumbled the hosts and whatever not. But I'm a big Kevin Sheehan fan. I really am. I think he's a really smart guy. He really tries to have a neutral opinion on things and not be too biased because he is a big Redskins fan. That's probably a lot of the big reason I like him a lot. But he's a smart guy. I love him to death. But Jesus Christ, if I fucking hear him talk about the Kirk Cousins contract again, I mean, and I know that he has to because that's what they tell him they have to talk about. They have to talk about that shit. But it's every day. It's every goddamn day. Are they going to sign Kirk Cousins before the trade deadline or before the training camp on July 27th? I mean, for fucking 3 months. And it was so simple. It's like, no, they're not going to sign Cousins to a long-term deal worth $65 million guaranteed. It's very simple because he had one good season. I mean, basically like half a good season, to be honest. And they're going to pay him $20 million. And then if he repeats that season statistically and they go to the playoffs, or if he has a better season and they go to the playoffs, they're going to give him a long-term deal. Period. End of story. And we don't need to talk about it anymore. That's what's going to happen. And people are trying to say, yeah, they could save some money if they sign him to a long-term deal this year. But it doesn't matter. They're going to save a couple $1 million, but they're going to reallocate that money and structure it into the deal so it'll work out in the long run. I'm so tired of it, and I want to put it to bed and never talk about contracts again. It's the same thing with the Von Miller situation.
You knew I was going to talk about it.
Go for it.
Well, this will be the last of it.
Speak your feelings.
It'll be the last of it, at least for a little bit on this show, but I'm with you overall, where it tends to just be 6 months of nothing, a lot of noise, and then in one day, obviously, everyone's wrong. So, talking about Von Miller, was there any doubt he would go anywhere else ever in anyone's mind? I know there wasn't in my mind. Like, who's going to let the Super Bowl MVP walk away? Like, who would be that person? So, for anyone ever said
I kind of thought that he was going to come to the Redskins for a little bit, but that was just me, I guess.
Well, that was not fueled by reality.
Was that my O face?
That's twice in one episode, Andrew.
I know. It's so good.
For those of you keeping home at home. All right. Well, what else do you want to talk about? We had some thoughts on how this year might be ultimately different than next year, right? I know, speaking from my perspective, it's going to be really different to turn on my TV and watch some games and not see some familiar faces out there on the field. Of course, I think the most obvious one is, Peyton Manning walking away from the game, walking away after Super Bowl championship. So really props to him for finally saying goodbye. But there was a lot of other, players that are familiar that are no longer in the league. So wondering who you're going to miss this year.
I'm sorry. What? Who am I gonna what?
No, like what players, as a fan of the game, right? We're not just fan of the Redskins or the Broncos. We're a fan of the game. So I guess, like, from a fan perspective, who you're going to miss not out there on the field?
In the next, forecasted retirements, i.e., Tom Brady, Drew Brees, or everybody that just retired this year?
Oh, yeah, everyone that just retired.
Well, I mean, I guess the first person that comes to mind right away is Calvin Johnson. I mean, that guy's been, every time he was on the field, he could have scored a touchdown. I mean, Detroit was exciting to watch because of Calvin Johnson, and now I don't give a flying shit about Detroit. Like, I don't even care. I mean, I was never really a big Matt Stafford fan. I think he's a quarterback. That's about it. But, I mean, Calvin Johnson was the biggest – he was the most physical specimen at wide receiver I think we've ever seen. I mean, I think he's like the LeBron James of wide receivers.
Absolutely. I mean, Stafford was the quarterback famous for just throwing up 50-50 balls, and then Calvin Johnson, a.k.a. Megatron, would just absolutely destroy some people. So definitely a soft spot in my heart and it's going to be sad to – you're right. There's no really real reason to watch a Lions game anymore. I'm sorry to say, with Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, Golden Tate, though, maybe they should sign Chris Chambers.
Oh, Chris Chambers is everywhere. I'm surprised he isn't on the Lions already.
Special teams, crushing. Onside kick returns. Wow. Who's your player? Who are you going to miss?
Oh, for me, I'm not sure miss, but I always respected Charles Woodson.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Bronco killer, right? Or not even when he was in Oakland, just all time. He was someone that you would fear going up against because he could change the game.
He's one of my favorite players of all time. I mean, that's my favorite. He transitioned from cornerback to safety. Safety's my favorite position of all time. And he is just absolutely an ageless wonder. I mean, up to his last year, I think. I mean, he led his team in interceptions. I mean, he's an absolute ball hawk from college to the last day of his pros. Unbelievable. And I'll transition to another Charles, who I'll miss, and Charles Peanut Tillman.
Yeah.
His retirement. I mean, he was the master of the forced fumble. I love me some Peanut Tillman.
The peanut punch. He was better than anyone at coming from behind when you thought you had a touchdown and just knocking the ball out.
It was kind of synonymous to the LeBron James, like, glass the basketball when you think you're gonna have an easy dunk, and he like flies from like 15 feet behind you and just glasses your shot, your layup.
You never even saw it coming.
Who else retired?
So one thing I was thinking of, is it going to be a different league without beast mode? Without Marshawn Lynch. I mean, I know he's kind of been on his last leg, so to speak. Last year he was injured and whatnot, but let's not forget the man, won a Super Bowl and was always a consistent top 5 running back for the last 5 or 6 years. So,
it's always weird when you've been a fan for the NFL for a long time and you are cognizant the day a guy is drafted and to the day he fucking retires. Then you're getting a little bit old because you've been around for the entire career of an NFL player. Granted, running backs in the NFL don't really last that long. But, I mean, I remember when Marshawn Lynch got drafted by the Bills and he was a beast. And but he didn't really shine, and then he had a couple of runs that will go down as all-time great runs. I mean, he will always forever be respected. He might even go to the Hall of Fame. That might be a stretch, but
that might be a stretch. But
he was good for the game, and he was quiet. And I'll miss Skittles. I'll miss Skittles a lot.
Yeah, he brought a certain, he wasn't a man of many words, but he was a personality that the league needed.
I think it was good for the players.
Exactly. He wouldn't answer to anyone else but himself. I respected
That's good. Not even the Darth Vader that is Roger Goodell.
that. All right, one other great that is kind of hard to imagine. He's no longer playing, but that's Jared Allen. I mean, that guy was around forever. Like I remember Jared Allen playing for the Chiefs and just being the only guy out there before Tamba Ali showed up that would do anything on that defense. And then he had a really productive career in Minnesota, and then was on that Panthers team that made a great late season push. So it's be different without him.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Hell of a personality, definitely. Definitely like a fun-loving Brett Favre type of player, likes to go hunting and drink beer and all that stuff. But he got sober and got successful. Almost won a couple Super Bowls on the Vikings and the Panthers. So happy for him. Sad to see him go. It's the way it goes, though.
All right, one last thing. Talking about players that retired. So we talked about a lot of greats, but there's also some people that retired that could have been. They had a lot of potential. I'm thinking of Percy Harvin. I think it just was surprising to read his name. I kind of forgot that he retired because in my mind he's not done anything in this league. But every year I want to draft him. So
yeah. I'm with you. I want to draft him too. He just had so much potential, and he had chemistry with Brett Favre for a couple of years, I think, but so many injuries. Man, I can't say I'm gonna miss him because he didn't really do much. But it sucks when you see a player with so much potential and have a couple of great seasons and then just kind of fizzle out. But that's the nature of this game. I mean, if you're not as a player getting better every single day and playing through injuries and training at your utmost hardest and doing your best machine impersonation, then you're not going to survive very long. I mean, that's just period. And unfortunately for some of those players, injuries, they just can't get over the injuries. And, but that happens, as we're talking about Galette and, Gordon with off the field issues and stuff like that. It sucks. But unfortunately, again, there's another common occurrence that's going to be happening more and more as the years go on in the NFL, and that's going to be younger players retiring and making a couple bucks and then being like, "Yo, I'm out. I've had a couple of concussions, and this is wearing on my body, and it's not worth it. And I'm going to go pursue another career." And that it's going to happen. I think it's going to increase and increase and increase, and it might be the downfall of this league.
All right, that's a great conversation started right there. I agree with you. I think the NFL in a lot of ways is kind of in this crisis, right? So, I mean, Calvin Johnson was a superstar who was only 30 and walked away. Now,
he can't get out of bed.
Yeah, he wrote a great article, which I encourage you to read. But these players are so beat up after 2-3 years, and some players, if you make it 9 years now, you're lucky. So I know, like talking to like my dad or other people from other older generations, they always used to say, "Oh, modern players are wussies," right? Old players used to play in 15, 20 years, and they're fine. They play through anything. But I think the game has changed. I think it's, obviously each player is bigger, faster, stronger. So the hits every player takes does more damage to the human body. So it's a changing game.
Well, you could talk about blue collar players, but back in the day in the 60s and 70s and 80s, where people were getting clotheslined and headshots and just. I mean, the hits were ridiculous. My God, the Raiders and the Steelers used to put some hurting on people. But not only has football evolved, but people have evolved, and people are starting to realize that health is extremely important, and people are realizing they can, lengthen not only the longevity of their life, but the quality of their life. And they realize that, hey, if I play football for 10 years and I make $10 million or $20 million, it's not really going to mean much if by 60 years old, I can't get out of bed, or I'm having, basically like concussive disorder and PTSD and, suicidal thoughts and all of these after effects. I mean, the NFL is this impenetrable, enormous success of a business. It's unbelievable, the success of this business. I mean, they're just ridiculous. But eventually is gonna bring it down. And I think this is it.
Well, all right. So I definitely agree. This is the biggest threat the NFL has faced, at least in my lifetime, and that's the fact that the game is so dangerous that the NFL needs to respond, and so far they haven't really responded. So I guess my question
they've responded. They've responded. I mean, they've enacted policies in lower level football where they have concussion protocols and different helmets and no hits below the blah blah blah. And I think I read an article about they're pretty much like outlawing Pee Wee football below a certain age. They've responded a little bit. I mean, but I think I don't know if I cut you off, but I just wanted to touch. They've definitely responded. There've been lawsuits, all that.
No, I agree. They are trying, right? And the problem is not just a short-term solution, right? They got to think about the future, and you're right. They got to change the game from the very ground floor all the way up to the top. But what I'm concerned about, and call me old-fashioned, but there's that hard line between, dare I say it, player safety and good old-fashioned football, right? Like, I guess that's hard to say as a fan, but remember the days where football was, very, very entertaining because it was so much contact, it's a bloody sport. But at the same time, player safety is important. I want to make sure the players out there are doing their best to stay healthy. Ultimately, I gotta say something's gotta change, though.
We'll be done in a second. No, I agree. It does suck. I mean, honestly, it's turning into kind of a pussy sport, and they're gonna outlaw kickoffs. I could just see it happening, and that's a fucking terrible thing. I mean, it's a big part of the game. I love kickoffs, and people are kickoff specialists. It's how they get jobs in the NFL. I mean, I have an opinion. Me being my profession is pretty much health and fitness and stuff like that, and we could talk all day. We could say, oh, would you let your son play football or your daughter or whatever? And we could talk all day about that. But the fact of the matter is, we love football and we love that entertainment. And the entertainment value is pretty much coming down with a flag pretty much tossed every other play of personal foul, unnecessary roughness. It's like it's set. Just let them play. They're making millions of dollars, so maybe just pay them more. I mean, honestly, like if I had the opportunity and I had the athletic skill to go out and put my body on the line to earn that much money, I would probably do it because I love that game. And I know all those guys out there right now putting their body on the line. They love that. I mean, shit. Navy SEALs put their money on the line, or their body on the line, their life on the line, everything like that. I know that's completely a terrible comparison, so I would like to retract that statement. But eventually, I think it will start to diminish the quality of the game, which I think you brought up is a great point. And I think people are just going to really realize that making that $10 million is probably not worth their mental health when they reach 45.
Well, I definitely think we should revisit this in the future. Let me propose one solution real quick, and that's, you said throwing more money, not throwing more money, but paying players more, right? Acknowledging that's a huge risk, and paying that for that risk. But one thing we can also do is just invest in technology. I mean, I'm a little biased, like you said, your industry, but I'm involved in tech, and I constantly see innovation happening all around. But the NFL is a little slow to move, and they're obviously a really successful business, and they're not going to change every time. But the fact of the matter is, we have a ton of technology that could be helpful for the sport. So I think there's a recent debate with kind of how sensors and technology can be used in the game. And I'd be interested to see what that looks like in a year or so when they start putting, sensors in balls and tracking field goals, et cetera, et cetera. But just want to get your quick thoughts on how technology can be a part in the NFL for how it, progresses in the future.
I think it can change the game. I mean, I'm a big proponent of we can make. I mean, even though the replay system kind of blows and backfires in situations, I do think that we can make this game safer if the NFL invests some of their unlimited resources in really making this game safe. So I will go back to your previous statement and say, although they have done some stuff that started for concussion awareness and blah blah blah, they can do a lot more. And I think that technology has gotten us this far, and we're doing amazing things with it. So why not? We can make our troops safe, and the most technologically advanced warfare. We have drones, we can help football players be, some Batman shit, like some fucking body armor.
That's what I want to see.
I think we can do it. Why not? And then, yeah, give them some fucking PEDs. I think everybody should be on steroids. Like, why not? If it helps them heal, they're like superheroes out there. It goes for entertainment value. So let them take them. I no problem with it. It's sports.
I fall on the same line. I think they should be at their, it's at the highest level. What does the highest level mean to you, right? So I think they should be wearing combat armor almost a little bit, right? That's what the modern uniform and equipment might be, is literally some kind of body armor.
The hits that they take across the middle it's combat. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, it's the most brutal thing. You see it every week. Every other week or something, you see some guy's head get taken off, and you're like, that guy is probably never going to walk again or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, we need to do everything we can. They need to put the resources out there, and I think the NFL Players Union or Association Union, whatever, need to really pressure the NFL. But let's get off the topic, because we'll revisit this in a much more thorough detail when we can really maybe conjure up some good ideas for what we can do. I want to bring up just a random topic, 2 minutes. Thoughts on the best. I read an article on ESPN about the top cornerback tandems in the NFL right now, top 5. And I want to get your thoughts on your top 5. And I know who your number 1 is, and I'm going to agree with it. So you go ahead, and then I will rebuke.
All right, well, real quick before your rebuttal, is Josh Norman and Bashawn Breeland in your top 5 right now? Can you just say that right now?
I'm sorry, I cannot disclose that information.
All right, that's what I thought. All right, well, we'll wait for your disclosure in a second here, but I'll go ahead and give you my top 5. That's a good question. Best cornerback duo in the NFL. I got to say, number 1, a no-brainer.
No-brainer.
Hopefully Aqib Talib is fine. He's fine in my book. So Aqib Talib and Chris Harris. Until I see otherwise, they're just a dynamic duo. Number 2, that's a hard one. Definitely, I don't even know right now who is the second cornerback in Seattle, but Richard Sherman, I respect him a lot. Is it Jeremy Lane, or who is the second cornerback in Seattle? But they're in my top 5. I like Kansas City. I really like Marcus Peters and Sean.
Oh my God, he's a beast.
It's not
Sean Smith is not there anymore.
Yeah, he left. I forgot. He went to the Raiders. All right.
Yeah.
Let me think here. This is actually a harder question than I thought. I'm honestly forget. Oh, Arizona, like Patrick Peterson and they Honey Badgers are kind of a safety, so he doesn't really count. But Jefferson's pretty good, and they have a lot of. They just have an overall good secondary. But I'm kind of dodging the topic. I don't know.
It's a tough one, and I this was completely off guard. I didn't give you any heads up, so I'm trying to bring up this article, and I'm having stupid internet troubles, but basically some guy on ESPN came up, and the number one, which I agree with, is Denver's duo, barring the thug of Aqib Talib.
It's not a thug to Plaxico Burris yourself. Just saying. That's not a thug.
It's you bring a gun to a club, you're an idiot. Just bring like 10 guys to watch what the fuck you're doing. But so he had Denver up front, and this is gonna be our last thing. I gotta go. But he had Denver up front, and then his second overall cornerback tandem was the Giants. Giants.
This guy works for ESPN.
Yeah.
The Giants let over 350 yards per game last year, and I know they spent a ton of money on defense, but I can't even think of a pair that I would put from that team that I would put in the top 2, let alone top 15.
Okay, so it is Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, which I agree is a fantastic corner. He's great. Any help with Landon Collins back there, but they just got some guy. Man, I'm going to do a bad job at this. They just got some guy. Who did they get? Man, the Giants. The Rams, I think.
Oh, Janoris Jenkins.
Janoris Jenkins.
They paid him
So they just got Janoris Jenkins.
They paid him so much money, and I'm going to say this right now. The Rams he wasn't even that good for the Rams. So I'm sorry, that is ludicrous to say that DRC, who I do respect, but let's face it, he's not in his prime. I don't think anyone would ever put him in his top 5 cornerbacks by himself. So him and
unbelievable that they're number 2. I think the Seahawks were up there. There was was it the Jets? I think too. But I don't have an internet connection, so I can't look it up. So this sucks. But we'll revisit this. But they left the Redskins out, which I why people don't think Breland is good. But to get Josh Norman, there's a lot to be proven. But I mean, for them to put the Giants in there in a top 5 quarterback tandem and leave out Bree and Norman was just crazy to me. I was like, what the hell? But I agree with you. I do like the Chiefs. I like that rookie. He stepped up big time.
All right, so I'm looking
go ahead.
I'm looking at Pro Football Focus. Sorry, they're not the same rankings that you were talking about, but they have the Broncos 1, the Cardinals, who I mentioned 2, then the Redskins at 3.
They have the Redskins at 3.
Yeah, and that's Pro Football Focus, who I respect a lot in terms of analytics.
I love that. And we're just going to go ahead and end on that note. I got to go, but we are going to get together this weekend. We're going to have another good podcast, a little bit more organized. I think this went well. Again, I think we dominated with NFL topics. So we will get to some other stuff, but man, the NFL is back, and I'm excited as all hell. I mean, in 2 weeks, I think this is the first preseason game. But good luck to all the players out there that are entering training camp. I hope everybody stays healthy, man.
Absolutely. It's been a good one. Let's hope no breaking injuries on either of our teams happens before we talk next. So let's hope to do it for the next one.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right. Peace.